Welcome back to endocrinology, and we will be looking at what lies above the kidney. Of course, we're talking about the adrenal gland. Now, our key objectives here is we're going to talk about, before the adrenal gland, we're going to talk about types of steroids, their specificity, the histological and functional differences in the adrenal gland, cortisol, aldosterone, and adrenal medulla. Now, let's look at our steroids and its families. Actually, the steroids are not the main component here. Our main component is this cholesterol, the one on the very top right. Now, this is a very simple image. We can obtain it from Google. As you can see that we have a large hydrophobic chain, hydrophobic region, and then we have this small hydrophilic region, which makes it an amphipathic. Cholesterol is important in our cell membrane and integrity. Also, the cholesterol is synthesized into 5 different families of hormonal steroid. This cholesterol is acquired from our food, and it can be also biosynthesized. These 5 classes of cholesterol derivatives are glucocorticoids, mineral corticoids, androgens, vitamin D, and progestin. We'll go them through slowly. We have glucocorticoids, also known as cortisol. And this comes in contact with many different types of cells. We will emphasize on that point later in the slides. The mineral corticoids, and we have a very good example of it, which is the aldosterone. Okay. It's a very known hormone. Androgens are testosterones and estrogens. They are actually androgens are precursors for these two hormones, and of course, and also estrogen is also an end product from testosterone in females. We're not going to emphasize on this, as it is self-explainable. The testosterone is secreted normally in the testicles, and the estrogen is secreted normally in the ovaries of the female, in females. We have then vitamin D, which is important for our skin and bones. And lastly, we have the progestin. And this we're going to emphasize on glucocorticoids, mineral corticoids only. Now let's look at our adrenal gland. The adrenal gland is an endocrine, of course, that sits on the cortex of the kidney. It has 4 distinct morphology and functional tissues. And this is a TS section of the adrenal gland. So as we can see, we have the capsule of the adrenal gland. This is also, and then we have the glomerulosa, which is the outer part of the tissue, and it's involved in the aldosterone secretion. Also we talked about the mineral corticoids. We have the fasciculata, the middle tissue, is involved in the formation of cortisol. Then we have the reticularis, which is involved in the production of androgen secretions, the precursors for testosterone. The adrenal medulla core, which is the core of the tissue, is involved in the secretion of catecholamine, a type of hormone, which is for the vitamin D. Now let's look at the cortisol synthesis. Before that, the cholesterol is acquired either from diet or biosynthesized from acetate by CoA reductase enzyme. And from acetate, there you go isoprenoids. From isoprenoids, we get squalene, and from squalene, we get the cholesterol, which is over here. This is our final product. Now, uptaking cholesterol in our diet, and cholesterol is partially soluble in blood, or immiscible, and is partially insoluble in blood, and hence the liver must make apoproteins and make a large complex of lipids and proteins called low-density lipoproteins. This is where this lipoprotein is circulated around the blood and giving out cholesterol to fat tissue and to several tissue, including the adrenal cortex, the adrenal gland, which either stores it in lipid droplets or synthesize into cortisol, which is the structure we have here. And as you can see, the cholesterol has been has undergone into several oxidation and truncation from this hydrophobic chain. And after the cortisol synthesis, the cortisol is carried on a binding protein called cortisol binding protein. And when it is delivered to the cell, it unbinds from the protein and enters the cell. The glucocorticoid receptors are associated with heat shock proteins. And once the cortisol binds to the receptor, the heat shock protein starts to dissociate, and the complex product goes to the nucleus and activates a transcription factor forming messenger RNAs. So what are heat shock proteins? Heat shock proteins are a special kind of proteins that binds to certain receptors and binds to it's a huge family. It binds to a lot of kinds of proteins inside the cell. It preserves the essential parts of the cell from any heat treatment or cold treatment throughout the vitality of the cell. So basically, it maintains the vitality of the cell. And so when it's bound to the receptor, the receptor is in its inactive form. And once it dissociates due to the cortisol binding process, the receptor becomes activated and then comes in to be an important regulatory for transcription activation. Now let's look at its function. The cortisol function is essential for human mortality. Without it, we die. It is essential for many transcriptional factors, as discussed in the introduction about steroid hormones. It also increases blood flow and increased blood glucose. These two contributes to the increase in blood pressure and blood homeostasis. It's also considered one of the most important anti-inflammatory drugs. So it's considered as an immunosuppressor. It inhibits the synthesis of arachidonic acid, which is a derivative of one of the important derivatives of the cytokines, precursors of cytokines, and without it, the immune system won't stimulate properly. However, it also, as it inhibits some, it also promotes catabolic processes for amino acids and free fatty acid release. It also promotes the proliferation of osteoclasts and inhibits the osteoblast activity, which causes osteoporosis. Now here's what osteoporosis looks like. What happens is that osteoclasts are the osteoclasts and osteoblasts are two antagonistic cells. The osteoclast degrades the bone, and the osteoblast reforms the bone again. It's kind of a cycle. So when one activity overcomes the other, it either makes the bone healthy, as the one on our left, or makes an osteoporosis. So the osteoclast increases activity, causes osteoporosis, and this is more common in women that have passed their menopause. Their ovaries cannot secrete estrogens, which are important for the osteoblast um,